Disclaimer: this content is only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought a single moment could change the way I saw my husband. But that night, when no one was watching, I witnessed something that left me completely stunned. It wasn't what my husband did when no one was watching left me stunned and betrayal or a dramatic confession. It was something far more unexpected, something that made me question everything I thought I knew about our relationship. It all started on an ordinary evening, one of those nights where everything feels routine. My husband, Daniel, and I had been married for 5 years. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I always believed we were solid, unshaken by the little storms life threw at us. That night, he seemed perfectly normal, laughing at his favorite TV show, casually scrolling through his phone, and talking to me about his day at work. Nothing felt off. Or at least, that's what I thought. But then, something strange happened. It was late, and I had just gone upstairs to get ready for bed. I remember pausing at the top of the stairs, glancing back down, expecting him to follow soon. But he didn't. Instead, he stayed back, unaware that I was still watching. And in that quiet, unguarded moment, he did something that sent chills down my spine. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I leaned in closer, my breath catching in my throat. My heart pounded as I tried to process what I was seeing. This was a side of him I had never seen before, something hidden beneath the surface, something he had kept from me all this time. A part of me wanted to go downstairs, confront him, demand an explanation. But another part of me hesitated, afraid of what I might uncover. I stood there frozen, my mind racing with questions. Had he always been like this? Had I been blind to the signs? And most importantly, why was he hiding this from me? My stomach twisted with unease, and in that moment, I realized our marriage might not be as simple as I had always believed. And that's when I knew things were about to change. What would you do if you discovered something about your partner that completely shifted your perception of them? Would you confront them right away, or would you keep watching, trying to piece together the truth? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video if you're as shocked as I was, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, this story is only just beginning. I stood there at the top of the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest, watching my husband, Daniel, completely unaware of my presence. The dim glow of the living room cast shadows across his face, making his expression hard to read. But what I saw, it wasn't normal. It wasn't the Daniel I knew. He reached for something I couldn't quite see from where I stood. My grip tightened on the wooden railing, my mind racing with possibilities. What was he doing? Why was he acting like this? And then, just as, "Hey, you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Yeah, just tired." He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. "Get some rest," he said before heading to the bathroom. I watched him disappear behind the door, my mind still spinning. Whatever I had just witnessed, whatever secret he was keeping, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let this go. The next morning, everything felt normal, at least on the surface. Daniel acted just like he always did, kissing me on the forehead before leaving for work, reminding me to eat lunch, and promising to be home by 6. But now, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I replayed last night over and over in my head, trying to make sense of what I had seen. Had I imagined it? Was I reading too much into it? I went through my usual routine, but my mind was somewhere else. Every little thing felt different, the way Daniel had glanced over his shoulder, the way his posture had shifted. It wasn't the actions themselves that unsettled me. It was the secrecy, the careful way he had moved, as if he was doing something he didn't want me to see. By the time the afternoon rolled around, I had convinced myself that I needed answers. But where would I even start? I didn't have proof of anything, just a feeling, an uneasiness that refused to go away. That evening, I decided to pay closer attention. I acted like nothing was wrong, laughing at his jokes during dinner, nodding along as he talked about work. But my mind was focused on the night ahead. Would he do it again? Would I catch another glimpse of whatever he was hiding? As the hours passed, I forced myself to stay patient. And then, Just like the night before, it happened. Daniel waited until he thought I was asleep before slipping out of bed. I kept my breathing steady, my eyes closed just enough to make it look real. The moment he left the room, my heart started racing. I gave him a few seconds before I got up, careful not to make a sound. Slowly, I followed him, stopping just before I reached the stairs. My hands gripped the railing as I peered down, my stomach twisting into knots. There he was, standing in the dim light of the living room, just like before. He moved with purpose, retrieving something from the drawer near the TV. My breath caught as he turned slightly, allowing me to see what he was holding. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. This wasn't just some harmless secret. Whatever Daniel was hiding, it was bigger than I ever imagined. What do you think is really going on? Drop your predictions in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, this story is far from over. I stood frozen at the top of the stairs, my breath shallow, my heart pounding so loudly I was afraid he might hear it. My fingers gripped the railing as I strained to see what Daniel was holding. The dim light didn't reveal much, but I could tell from the way he handled it carefully, almost nervously, that it was important. That whatever this was, it wasn't something he wanted me to know about. I considered calling out to him, pretending I had just woken up for water, but something inside me held me back. If I confronted him now, he could lie, dismiss it, make me feel like I was imagining things. No, I needed to understand what was really going on before I said anything. I watched as he stood still for a moment, his shoulders tense, his fingers tightening around the object. Then, just like the night before, he tucked it away, this time into a small bag, zipping it shut before quietly placing it inside the cabinet. My pulse quickened. Whatever he was hiding, it wasn't just some harmless secret. It was something he needed to keep locked away. And then, as if sensing something, he suddenly turned. I ducked back into the shadows, pressing myself against the wall, barely daring to breathe. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, feel the heat rushing to my face. Did he see me? Was he coming up the stairs? I closed my eyes for a second, bracing myself. But then, footsteps. Slow, measured. And then, silence. I counted to 10 before daring to peek again. He was gone. The living room was empty. But now, I knew exactly where to look. I waited, lying in bed with my mind racing, pretending to be asleep when he returned. When I finally heard his breathing slow, his body relaxing beside me, I knew I had my chance. I had to see what was inside that bag. Carefully, I slipped out of bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. Every movement felt too loud, too risky. But I had come too far to turn back now. Slowly, I crept downstairs, the wooden steps cool under my bare feet. The cabinet. I reached for the handle, hesitating for just a second before pulling it open. The bag sat right where he had left it, zipped shut. My fingers trembled as I unzipped it, my pulse thudding in my ears. And then, as I finally saw what was inside, my breath hitched. I felt the ground shift beneath me. This wasn't just a secret. This was something that could change everything. What would you do if you discovered something about your partner that you were never meant to find? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next, you won't believe. My hands trembled as I stared into the bag, my breath caught in my throat. I wasn't sure what I had expected, but this was something I wasn't prepared for. My mind raced, trying to piece together what I was looking at, but no explanation made sense. My fingers hovered over the contents, hesitant to touch them, as if doing so would somehow make everything real. Footsteps. A chill shot down my spine. I quickly zipped the bag shut and shoved it back into the cabinet, closing the door as quietly as possible. My heart pounded in my chest as I backed away, my ears straining to hear any movement. The house was silent. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I was just so on edge that every little sound felt like a threat. I took a deep breath, pressing a hand against my chest, trying to calm myself. But just as I turned to go back upstairs, a voice cut through the silence. "What are you doing?" I spun around so fast I nearly lost my balance. Daniel stood in the doorway, his face shadowed by the dim light. His expression was unreadable, But there was something in his eyes, something that made my stomach twist. My mind scrambled for an excuse. I couldn't sleep. I came down for some water. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stood there, watching me. The air between us felt heavy, charged with something unspoken. For the first time since I had known him, I felt like I was standing in front of a stranger. "Water's in the kitchen," he finally said, his voice eerily calm. I swallowed hard. "I know." He took a step closer. My body tensed, every instinct telling me to move, to get away. But I forced myself to stay still, to not let him see the fear creeping into my expression. "I thought you were asleep," he said, his gaze never leaving mine. I forced a small, nervous laugh. "I was, but I woke up thirsty." Another step. "And you just happened to be near the cabinet." I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. He knew. He had to know. I could see it in his eyes. A long silence stretched between us. And then, without warning, he smiled. But it wasn't the warm, familiar smile I had seen 1,000 times before. It was something else, something colder. "I think you should go back to bed," he said softly. I hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Yeah. You're right." Slowly, I turned and walked up the stairs, my heart pounding with every step. But as I reached the bedroom and closed the door behind me, one thing became terrifyingly clear. Daniel knew I had seen the bag. And now, I didn't know what he would do next. What would you do in my situation? Would you confront him or pretend nothing happened? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because things are about to take an even darker turn. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's expression, calm, unreadable, but with something lurking underneath. He knew I had seen the bag. He knew I was hiding something, just like he was. By morning, I had made a decision. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. If I let this go, I would never trust him again. I needed answers. I waited until he was in the shower before slipping downstairs. My hands were shaking as I reached for the bag, unzipping it as fast as I could. And there it was, the thing that had changed everything, a stack of neatly folded documents, a set of keys, and a phone I had never seen before. My stomach twisted as I flipped through the papers. Some were financial statements, others were legal documents with names I didn't recognize. My breath caught when I saw a receipt for a luxury penthouse, one I had never been to, under a name that wasn't his. And then, the phone buzzed. My heart pounded as I picked it up. A single message flashed across the screen. "Same time tonight?" I barely had time to process what I was looking at before I heard footsteps. I shoved everything back into the bag and slammed the cabinet shut just as Daniel walked in, his hair still damp from the shower. He stopped in the doorway, his eyes scanning the room. "You're up early," he said. I forced a smile. "Couldn't sleep." He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on me a little too long before he walked to the coffee machine. The tension between us was suffocating. I had a choice to make. Confront him now? Or wait until I knew the full truth? I needed more time. That day, while he was at work, I did something I never thought I would do. I followed him. My heart pounded as I drove behind him, watching as he turned onto a street I didn't recognize. And then, I saw it. A luxury penthouse. The same one from the documents. He parked, got out, and walked inside. My fingers clenched around the steering wheel. I sat there for what felt like forever, waiting. And then, finally, the door opened again. But Daniel wasn't alone. A woman stepped out beside him, laughing at something he said. He placed his hand on her lower back in a way that made my stomach twist. I had my answer. By the time Daniel got home that night, I had already packed my bags. When he walked in, I didn't say a word. I just held up the documents, the phone, and the keys. His face paled. He opened his mouth to speak, but I didn't need to hear it. I walked past him, out the door, and into a new beginning. Sometimes, the person you trust the most is the one hiding the biggest secrets. What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes, the truth is just the beginning.